This is Keeper of the Lost City's Everblaze, Chapter 22. Tiergan spent the rest of their session explaining his new guide safety procedures. The two primary rules were make eye contact every few minutes and don't do anything without warning. He also insisted that they communicate in code, so that if Finton's mind became conscious at any point, he wouldn't know what they were doing. Their homework was to create their code words and have them memorized by their next telepathy session on Thursday. It took them all of study hall to create their list, though that was mostly because their friends kept interrupting. Dex kept grumbling about telepaths. Biana kept begging to use her ability to sneak into the healing. And Keith kept interrupting by making unhelpful suggestions like snickerdoodle and hippity hop. And Keith is the awesome lord of everything. Only Jency and Morella left them alone, though Sophie could tell they felt left out. But she wasn't dragging any more of her friends into her drama. The commands they finally picked were Alden, no reason to worry. Malamelt, I found something good. De Melina, I'm in trouble. Verminion, get out as fast as you can. Everblaze, I'm going to use a brain push. Fitz hadn't understood why Sophie wanted a code word for brain pushes, but she'd used the rare method of channeling during Finton's memory break, and it happened right before everything went wrong. Part of her kept wondering if the two elements were connected. Hopefully, she wouldn't need to take such an extreme measure this time, but in case she did, she wanted Fitz to be warned and ready. She was going to protect him in every way she could. Sophie had figured her friends would want to come over after school, but Biana and Dex both had tons of homework from their ability sessions, and Tiergan gave Fitz concentration exercises to practice. Even Keith was stuck doing some sort of empath practice with his dad, and with Grady still not home and Edeline outside giving their Verminion a bath, Sophie ended up roaming her empty house trying to figure out where they would have put Jolie's old school things. There weren't a lot of places to check. The downstairs was mostly one big open space, with no closets or cupboards or even any drawers. The half of the second floor was Grady and Edeline's room, which Sophie honestly wasn't sure if she was allowed to go into. So, unless there was an attic she didn't know about, the only places left were Grady and Edeline's offices. And Sophie had a feeling Edeline's was a better bet. It was the place where stuff goes to die, after all. Sandor had to help her push open the door, because a huge bin of unopened letters was blocking most of it, and the office inside was far worse than Sophie remembered. She'd never seen so many boxes and trunks in one place, all stacked into chaotic piles and draped with more junk, turning the room into a dusty maze. One trunk at a time, Sophie whispered, opening the one closest to her. A cloud of dust made her choke as she sifted through the tangle of silky lavender fabric inside. Sophie thought they were dresses, but when she pulled one out, she realized they were tablecloths, edged with pearls and frilly lace. The trunk next to it held the same, and the one after that appeared to be the matching napkins. When the last trunk in the stack had diamond napkin rings, Sophie decided to move to a different spot. Hours passed, with more of the same, and Sophie was fairly certain the labyrinth was stretching around her, trapping her with the endless supply of dusty party decorations for the rest of her days. Her nose itched and her back ached, but she forced herself to keep going, working through 2 more chests of crystal goblets before she opened a small black trunk stuffed with books and scrolls. The foxfire seal on a notebook made her heart triple in speed, but when she looked closer, she realized they were from Jolie's earlier levels. Pages of boring lecture notes from elven history and multi-speciesial studies, many with doodles in the margins of a boy who looked like the photos she'd seen of Brant. There were stacks of sketchbooks, too, filled with gorgeous renderings of landscapes and creatures and other prodigies at school. Sophie had never realized Jolie was so talented, and she'd never realized she was a conjurer. But she found the Elemental Guide to Conjuring and Translocation with worn pages covered in hundreds of notes written in Jolie's loopy writing. It was eye-opening and fascinating, but not particularly useful, and Sophie was about to move to another chest when she noticed a crumpled red scroll at the bottom. tied with gleaming gold ribbon, and bearing a strange seal. 2 hands with fingers intertwined, their wrists bound with gold threads. It took several tries to untie the extra tight knot in the ribbon, but when Sophie finally unrolled the scroll, she found 5 curled pages, all stamped at the top with the same seal. Underneath, in a fancy, frilly script, it said, "By official arrangement of the matchmakers, matches for Jolie Ruin." Every scroll had a date at the top, each one exactly a month older than the last, and the title that implied the matches had been ranked. The first page said, "Top Tier." The one after it said, "Second Contenders," followed by "Third Considerations," then "Fourth Runners-Up," and lastly, "Final Alternatives." And underneath each heading was a list of 100 names, 500 different matches to choose from overall. Sophie scanned the names, surprised that number 37 on Jolie's top-tier matches was someone named Ollie Hex, who must have been Stina's uncle or cousin or something. Also on that page were 2 different Vackers, Banish Vacker at number 24 and Harlan Vacker at number 77, though neither names Sophie recognized. In fact, none of these names seemed particularly familiar. It took her a minute to realize what that meant. She rechecked each scroll, making sure her photogenic memory hadn't failed her, but it was exactly like she'd remembered. 500 names on each scroll, 500 approved matches for Jolie, and Brant's name wasn't one of them.